the taskbar on your screen, and the speaker will address them accordingly at the end of the presentation during the question and answer segment. As we begin today's webinar, allow me to introduce to you Dr. Leslie-Ann Jordan Miller, who will be the speaker for today's webinar. Dr. Jordan Miller has been awarded her PhD from the University of Otago, New Zealand, and currently holds the position of Managing Director and Lead Consultant at the Institute of Service and Quality Management Limited. Without further ado, I hand you over to Dr. Jordan Miller, who will provide you with the insightful information on the topic of, is the customer always right? Dr. Jordan Miller, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for that introduction and welcome, Michael. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for taking the time to be with us this afternoon as we discuss a question that I hear all the time. So without any further ado, I am going to share my screen with you as we get into the PowerPoint presentation. So is the customer always right? As I said, it's a question I hear all the time, and we're just going to discuss a few different perspectives to this question this afternoon. So in a nutshell, who am I? Michael would have already given you, a few little nuggets about me. I am the wife to just one husband. I am the mother to two beautiful daughters. I teach as well in the hospitality and tourism industry. So I am a senior lecturer at the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine campus. So I've been teaching about tourism, hospitality, service management for the past 17 plus years. I am also a qualified customer service educator and a trainer. And in terms of personal service, I serve as a deacon and the head of our ushering ministry in my home church, which is Revival Mission in La Romaine. So that's me in a nutshell, right? So in terms of our webinar outline, we are going to look at, of course, the origin of the phrase. Who on earth would have suggested that the customer is always right? Where did that come from? We are also going to talk about, is there a time when the customer is wrong? And some quick strategies on what you can do if the customer is wrong. So some strategies to deal with dissatisfied customers. And then, of course, the role of the company, the role of the employee, and we'd also talk about, well, what should the organization be focusing on in order to reduce some of these customer service problems. So I have an activity for you at the very start. So I want you to look at these two videos that I'm going to show you, very short videos, but if you have a pen and paper, even your phone, as you look at these two videos, if you can, answer these two questions for me. So the first question, I want you to write 5 adjectives, 5 descriptive words to describe the customer that you're seeing in these two scenarios. 5 adjectives. And then 5 adjectives as well to describe the employee who is interacting or dealing with that customer, right? So simple exercise. I'm going to show you video number 1, and then we'd have a little discussion at the end of the second video, okay? So first video, just a little disclaimer, there is a bit of coarse language in both of the videos, okay?
Excuse me.
Yes. Hello, how are you today?
Do you work here? I've been standing here for half an hour now.
Yes, I do work here. And are you sure about that? Because I was behind here about 10 minutes ago.
Are you calling me a liar?
No, not at all. I was merely stating the fact that maybe you overestimated the amount of time that you were waiting here. But look, I'm sorry. How can I help you?
I'd like to return this camera, please.
Yeah? Okay. Yep, I can help you with that. What seems to be the problem?
It doesn't take good pictures.
How so? It's actually a really good camera.
All the photos come out blurry and some are dark.
Right. What were you taking photos of?
My husband and I went away for a weekend and I was trying to take lots of photos as we drove around and it all looked terrible.
Okay, so when you say driving around, you mean you would drive, stop, take a photo?
No, we didn't have time to get out all the time.
Well, so you were taking photos when you were driving?
While my husband drove, yes.
Right, that seems to be the problem. It's really hard to hold these still while you're driving and get a clear picture. The camera's not faulty. Plus, the car's moving as well. You'd be struggling to get a good shot without a DSLR.
Look, I know how to use a camera, and this one isn't working.
Okay. Smile. Look at that. See? Clearly in focus.
Well, it only happens sometimes. Regardless, I want a refund. It didn't work for the purpose I bought it for.
Look, I'm really sorry, but we can't give you a refund unless it's faulty.
It takes blurry pictures.
No, remember, I just took a photo of you. You just can't take a photo out of a moving vehicle and expect it to be in focus.
Well, that's false advertising then. Where did it say that on the box?
Well, the list of things it can't do are much longer than what it can do.
How do you mean?
Well, I mean, they're not going to list all the things that it can't do. You know, you don't buy a toaster and then they put on the packaging, this toaster won't turn into a car.
Now you're talking nonsense.
Shut up! I'm just following the same rules as everyone else. I thought this job was going to be easy. But it's people like you who think they're royalty, who pooped out a couple of kids and been on this earth 20 years longer than me, complicate things.
Well,
What? You think because I'm wearing this polo shirt, there's a desk between us, that, what, you have this magical power that excuses you from being a bitch? Why don't you leave your camera, go to the front desk and f*** off? I'm in trouble.
All right, that's our first video. So 5 adjectives to describe the customer and 5 adjectives to describe, the employee, right? I hope you have those listed. Second video.
Hi, how are you?
Not too good, actually. I need to return this.
I can do that. What's wrong with it?
It's broken. It doesn't work.
Doesn't seem to be scanning.
Oh, what does that mean?
It means it's not in our system. When did you buy it?
Oh, well, I don't know. Look, can you hurry this up, please? Because I've got a lot to do today.
Okay, sorry. Have you got a receipt?
Well, I don't think so. I don't hang on to every piece of rubbish I find.
Well, we usually ask for a receipt for proof of purchase.
Look, I don't really have time for this. I spend a lot of money here, you know. There you go. Right, can I have my money back now, please?
This is from another store.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is. I can't return this
Why not?
because you didn't buy it here.
Well, what does it matter where I bought it? I mean, you sell all the same stuff here. Just put it on the shelf and sell it.
I thought you said it was broken.
Well, after you fix it, obviously. God, you checkout chicks are thick in the head. Look, can I have my money back or not?
I'm sorry, but we've got a lot of people waiting and we really need to sort this out.
I don't care about that. I was here first. God, whatever happened to the customer's always right, eh?
Look, bitch, the only way you're getting any money back is if you manage to drag your fat ass over this counter and get it out of the till. Mind you, if you do get over this counter, I will stomp your ass into the ground, American History X style. By the curb, bitch.
All right. So we've looked at 2 videos and I want you, if you could unmute your mic because I cannot see the chat. Tell me 5 of the adjectives you've written down, or 2 or 3, to describe either the customer. Let's do the customer first. How would you describe those 2 customers? Anyone? Quickly. Rosanna. Rosanna, not hearing you as yet. Anyone else can jump in while we wait on Rosanna.
Hi.
Hi, Jamal.
Hi. So yes, I have one that the customer was very irate, dishonest, and impatient.
Yes, I have those as well. Thank you. Anyone else? Anything different from Jamal that we can add to the list? Anyone? Rosanna? Angry, impatient, dishonest. What else?
Just to chime in, Dr. Jordan Miller, I have, well, offensive, impatient, close-minded, and as the old saying goes, wrong and strong.
Exactly, wrong and strong. I like that one. Yes, very good. I can throw in some as well. Persistent, unreasonable. And we hear that so many times sometimes when we describe the customers that we interact with. Some people would even say abusive. Yeah. Now, what about the employees? How would you describe the employees in those two scenarios? What about the employees? Did you think they responded well?
I will say initially they responded well. They were polite. They
Mhm.
were soft-spoken until they were pushed over the threshold. And then they went into the manner that employees really should not behave.
Yeah, so they started off well, yes. So polite, soft-spoken, patient to a certain extent. Yeah, I found that they were knowledgeable. They were asking all the right questions, checking the information that the customer would have shared with them.
Even asking for the receipts as proof of purchase.
Yes, so
Yeah.
knowledgeable also about the company's policies and so on.
Yeah.
I also have active listening because they were listening. They didn't just dismiss the customer. They listened, quite carefully to what the customer was saying, right? So these are two scenarios. Now, I'm not too sure if you would have ever encountered anything as extreme as this. I wouldn't be surprised if you would have, because I know on a day-to-day basis you interact with a number of different customers. And so we want to discuss, coming off of those two scenarios, is the customer always right? Now, I'm sure you already have your answer based on those two scenarios, but it's important to understand the historical context of that saying. And that saying, the customer is always right, is attributed to a gentleman called Harry Gordon Selfridge, as well as Marshall Field. Now, Marshall Field operated a department store in Chicago, and he is famed as saying, "Give the lady what she wants," right? And Selfridge was employed at his store for about 25 years, and then he went to England, realized that, the level of customer service in England and the customer experience, the shopping experience was not up to par based on what he had experienced in the US. And he decided to open a department store. And his philosophy at the time was that the customer is always right. Now, of course, this was in the early 1900s, and I actually want to show you, I have just a short clip of that Selfridge store, and it's still up and running even today.
Today revealing some unknown facts about one of the most famous department stores in the world, Selfridge's. Selfridge's, or Selfridge's & Co., was founded in the early 1900s by Harry Gordon Selfridge, who started his business at Marshall Fields in the USA. However, he discovered that the USA was not the right place for
any video.
and moved to London, England to try it again.
You're not hearing?
Yes, we are hearing, but we're not seeing the video. I'm not sure if we're supposed to see it.
Yes, you were supposed to see it as well. All right, it's just a minute video, so I will skip back to the PowerPoint. So it was just talking about that department store, and I think the context of the saying is important, because if you think about it, we're in 2022 now, the consumer rights are very different. Back then, in that era, customers were not treated well. They actually had a saying back then, buyer beware, right? Caveat emptor, which says is really purchase at your own peril as the consumer. The buyer alone was responsible for checking the quality and the suitability of goods before purchase. And this was in the 1900s. So when Harry Gordon Selfridge, looked at the landscape and he realized, but wait, customers, are not treated well. They are not the main focus of the shopping and the buying experience. He decided to change the culture of retail and the culture of shopping, and he coined, well, it's attributed to him, that phrase that the customer is always right. And I'm not sure if anyone looks at Netflix quite a lot, but there was actually a really nice series that documented, a really nice show that documented how he revolutionized the shopping experience in England at the time. So the context is important, right? It was suitable for that time. And I will tell you that it was not just the US or even the British that had that, but I've listed that even in France, they have a saying that the customer is never wrong. And the famous hotelier Caesar Ritz is known as saying, if a diner complains about a dish or the wine, immediately remove it, replace it, no questions asked. And if we look at the Ritz now, of course, we in all of them, they have this awesome reputation and they're known as one of the best in class, right? The Germans have a saying, the customer is king. The Japanese, the customer is a god. And in Italy, the customer always has a reason, right? So this philosophy about the customer being king, the customer being right, has been around for quite a long time. So why would companies use it? Why would they say it? Well, I could understand the thinking or the philosophy behind it, right? Because the companies want to signal to customers that they are important, right? I am sure that you always look for ways to signal, to tell your customers that they are important to your business, that you value them, that you cherish them, that you cannot do without them, right? So I could understand why some companies might use it. It's also used to instill a sense of quality in the product or the service that you're offering. And many times is used to push or encourage or motivate employees to make the right decisions that benefit the customer, to really be, as we say, customer centric or customer focused. And of course, the goal of all that is usually to lead towards customer satisfaction, customer loyalty, and to build trust between you and the customer. So there are a number of reasons why I think business persons still continue to use that phrase, the customer is always right, or the customer is king. And it simply means that, of course, the customers they can make or break your business. If you think about it, customer complaints, when customers are dissatisfied and they complain, they could really hurt your business. And if you think about the era that we're living in now with social media, sometimes it is so difficult to manage some of those complaints or those testimonies when they go out on the internet or on Facebook or on Instagram. So customers could make or break your business. So sometimes that's why the saying is said to really encourage business persons to focus on the customer. And this is a famous quotation from Sam Walton from Walmart. And he said, there is only one boss, the customer, and he can fire everybody in the company from the chairman on down simply by spending his money somewhere else. Is that true or not? So we could discuss whether you agree with this statement or not, right? But these kinds of thinking and quotations would have been used to support that notion that the customer is always right, that we as businesses, you must focus on the customer. Another reason why it is said, well, the recognition that negative word of mouth could be detrimental or very dangerous. And it's tied, of course, to that first point, because you have dissatisfied customers who can spread negative word of mouth about your business. And you would know that just one bad review can be very costly to a company because it influences other people. And it could be that they have never had any interaction with you at all, but they go based on that one negative review. So that companies always encourage their employees to focus on the customer. And the third reason why the saying is still around, I think, is because of that notion that talks about happy customers multiply. Right? It says happiness is contagious, and therefore focusing on the happiness and the satisfaction of your customer would, of course, lead to repeat business, It would lead to increased revenue. It leads to customer loyalty. It leads to an increase in your brand reputation, right? Because your loyal customers, of course, they're going to recommend you to their family, to their friends, and to their colleagues. So I think all of these reasons help to reinforce that statement throughout the years that the customer is always right. And I think if you, as I think about it, that the philosophy behind it is really to encourage everyone to focus on the needs of the customer, the expectations of the customer, and the pain points of the customer as well. What is the customer not happy about, and how could you solve some of those issues? So in terms of that customer loyalty, another famous quote from Walt Disney, it says, do what you do so well that they, the customer, will want to see it again, and that they will want to bring their friends to do business with you, right? I think that's one of the main goals of any business, that repeat purchase, the recommendations, the positive testimonies. Now we want to look at, so we've looked at the reasons why persons might support that notion that the customer is always right. Let's look at when is the customer wrong. So they are wrong, quote unquote, customers. And it says sometimes customers are wrong, as we saw in the 2 video clips at the start. And employees need to know how to handle these wrong customers accordingly. So as we saw in the video clips, the employees started off very well, but somewhere along the way, as the situation got more ticklish, as the customer got more persistent and a little bit abusive, they were not prepared. They were probably not trained on how to then deal with that angry, dissatisfied customer. So I want us to look at when is the customer wrong. The customer is sometimes wrong for your business. And it says simply here that it is really impossible to satisfy everyone, right? So using that phrase, the customer is always right, it then gives the assumption that you can satisfy every customer, every time, every encounter, 24 hours of every day. And of course, we know that that is, as they say, a fool's errand, right? Because people are unique. People have different perceptions of the quality of service that you offer. We all have different tastes in fashion and food and homes. We come from different cultural backgrounds, different educational backgrounds. It would be really crazy to think that you can please and satisfy everyone, even as good as you are, even if you have an outstanding product or service. I would want to challenge that you would still have some customers that are not 100% satisfied. So there you may realize that there are some people who are just wrong for your business, right? They will never be satisfied with any experience that you offer. And I want to show you one sort of case study from Southwest Airlines. Now, Southwest, a lot has been written about Southwest. They're used all the time as a positive example for customer service. I'm just going to read this short case study. It says a classic example of this is a woman who flew Southwest Airlines, yet she complained to the company every single time that she did. Her complaints were not about a specific incident that went wrong or something that made sense to fix. Instead, her comments ran the gamut, including annoyance about the way the planes were boarded, a dislike of the fact that they didn't have a first-class section, complaints about the uniforms the employees wore, and on and on and on. At long last, her history and comments were passed up to the company's CEO, Herb Keller, and after one look at the history, he immediately replied, "Dear Mrs. Crabapple, we will miss you. Love, Herb." That's it. And when I read this, I laughed because so many times, business persons think, how could I break up with this customer? Right? How could I tell them, listen, we are not a good fit? How could I do that? Right? And could you just give me one quick minute, please? Sorry about that. Yes. So how could you break up with the customer? Because many times as businesses, you feel that you need to hold on to every customer because because of revenue, and that is not the case. There are some customers that are really not worth the time. I'm take once again, take the context of what I'm saying, right? They complain so often, they make the life of your employees, miserable. And it simply means that if there isn't a good match between what you are offering and what they are expecting, then there comes a time when you are going to have to say, we will miss you, right? And of course, that has to be decided from top management, right? How are you going to, what is your strategy to actually part ways with these customers? Because of course you do not want to do it in a rude manner at all. Secondly, when is the customer wrong? It could be that the customer is wrong for the type of employees that you have, and you also want to signal to your employees that they are also important. Remember, they are a critical component of your business as well. So many times we say, well, without the customer we have no business, but isn't the other side true? Without our employees we also have no business. So if you hold on to that mantra that the customer is always right, it can have a negative impact on the morale of your employees. True story. As I said, I teach, right? So I interact with my undergraduate students. And one student came and she was giving this example. She said, Miss, I had a job, but I had to leave it. So I said, what happened? And she said it was a telecommunications company right here in Trinidad and Tobago. And she said their policy was that employees were not allowed to hang up the phone on a customer. Right? Not allowed. So she said she got this call from a gentleman and he was abusive. Every expletive, anything you can think about under the sun. And she was not able to, get him to calm down. And she said it was so emotionally, distressing that she couldn't put down the phone. Right? And she said, Miss, I can't handle that kind of abuse every day. And she left. But that company, in my mind, could have done better. It means that you are not valuing the importance of your employees as well if you hold on that the customer is always right. And therefore, you have to listen to what the customer has to say. And you have to do, everything in your power to try and please the customers. Now, that is right to a certain extent. You do want to try and go the extra mile and above and beyond. But companies need to draw that line when it comes to abusive customers, right? And then finally, sometimes the customer is just wrong, just in the wrong. They are abusive, as I just said, or it could be that they abuse the product or service that they would have, bought from you, and then they complain that it is broken, as we saw in the 2 video clips. Sometimes they made a change in the environment that may have affected the way that the service worked. Sometimes as customers, and I know I'm guilty of this, sometimes we ignore warnings. We don't read the labels or the instructions, and then we claim that the product is not working. Or many times when there is a service problem, it's not just one party to blame. Many times there are a number of issues. It may partly be the customer, it may partly be the employee, it may partly be the processes and the systems that the company has in place as well, right? So this is like some of the negatives of holding on to that the customer is always right. So I just want to touch a little bit on the abusive customer. And as much as I think customers are critical and they're important and everything else, I think companies need to draw that line when it comes to abusive customers, because there is a difference between a customer that is angry, right, dissatisfied, sometimes even difficult, impractical, and so on. But that is very different to being abusive, right? So it says you don't have to subject yourself or your employees to any kind of rude comments or insults. And this is an example of how you can gently confront abusive customers. So it says, Mr. Jordan, I really want to help you, but as long as you continue to use that kind of language, I'm finding it really difficult to help. Now I can get this matter or this issue taken care of. Will you allow me to do that? Right? And if you try this strategy first and the customer continues, then a lot of companies have a 3 strikes and you're out. So if the customer continues again, even after you may repeat, something similar, then after 3 times, you are allowed to say, Mr. Jordan, please call us back when you are willing to listen or when you are willing to communicate, and you can hang up, or you can walk away, or you can call a manager, or sometimes you have to get security involved, right? So I would say, and I always advocate, you do not have to tolerate abusive customers. So, given the historical context and given what we just discussed, the saying the customer is always right is not to be taken literally. So it says it's not about doing whatever the customer says and give them whatever they've asked for, but it is about focusing on your customer, right? It is about thinking how you can meet their needs. How could you go the extra mile to satisfy them? How could you identify what we call pain points? And how you can develop solutions to fix those pain points. So, if you were looking for a direct answer, right? No black and white, no gray area. Sorry, the customer is not always right. But the customer is critical to your business success. And I think instead of focusing on whether the customer is right or the customer is wrong, the goal should really be, how could I create a quality customer experience? And I just want to touch on that customer experience, because even back in the 1900s, if you do the research from Selfridges, he was concerned about the customer shopping experience. And he was appalled at what he was seeing. So that when you look at the documentaries and the show, you saw how he spent a lot of time and a lot of money investing in that customer experience, playing music, having phones on every counter that employees could call to find out the availability of items. He used young ladies at every lift to accompany the customer to whatever floor they were going to. He had a food court, some really revolutionary things at the time. So I think he was ahead of his game when he realized the importance of the customer experience, right? And it says that customer experience is really the holistic perception of the experience that the customer is going to have with your business or your brand. So it's really every interaction the customer has with you. They are going to form an opinion about the quality of service that you deliver. So if you focus on the customer experience, you're looking then at how could you make the customer feel right. And I would explain that a little bit later as a strategy. So the CX talks about how do you make your customers feel when they do business with you? What promises are you making to them? Sometimes companies overpromise and they underdeliver, right? And therefore they're not able to manage customers' expectations. And that causes a lot of disappointment in the service interaction. So what promises are you making to your customer? Are you able to keep those promises? How well are you able to follow through with your customers as it relates to customer satisfaction and loyalty? I want to share with you another famous quote that's attributed to Mahatma Gandhi. And he says, a customer is the most important visitor on our premises. He is not dependent on us. We are dependent on him. He's not an interruption in our work. He is the purpose of our work. He's not an outsider in our business. He's part of it. We are not doing him a favor by serving him. He is doing us a favor by giving us an opportunity to do so. And therefore, once again, signaling the importance of the customer. When you have customers that are unhappy, when they are dissatisfied, you should not ignore them. There is, of course, an economic cost to ignoring customers who are unhappy. And I just have a couple statistics here. It says the average business loses 10 to 30% of its customers every year due to poor service without knowing. And I'm sure if you think of your own experience, I know I certainly have. There are some companies I have stopped doing business with. And I never said it to them. I just disappeared. I was like, I'm not coming back here. I am not giving you my money. No way. I just disappear. It's more costly, it says, to win a new customer than it is to lose an existing one. And it says it takes 12 positive experiences or encounters to make up for a negative one. So that as a company, you do not want to ignore your customers when they are a bit challenging. So what's the solution? Employees then need to be trained. We would have said it already. And based on the video clips, those employees started off right, but they lost it along the way. So that in order for companies to equip their employees, they must be trained. And listen, I do a lot of one-day workshops, and I think they're fantastic, but that is sometimes just the start. Sometimes that is just a little pep. It's a little teaser. Training to me really has to be very consistent over the time, and it is an investment if you are to get, well-trained employees who are able to turn that angry customer back into a loyal customer, and it is possible. So employees with the right training is part of the solution. It says they will know when to agree that the company was at fault and that the company can fix the issue, that the company needs to take responsibility, and they will know when to explain to the customer that the issue is out of their hands. They will know how to break up with the customer if needs be. They will know how to treat with a customer that is crossing the line between being angry and being abusive, right? So employees with the right training, employees with the right tools are also important. So when we talk about empowerment, a lot of companies think empowering employees is just saying, okay, well, you can give a fruit basket. A customer has a problem, give them a fruit basket, give them a bottle of wine, give them an upgrade, and they think that that's the end of the story. But that is not, that's not the full picture. So that companies need to learn how to give employees the right tools, the right knowledge, right? The right training. Of course, you need some tools in your toolkit. Yes, the things that you give away as compensation, the right words to say, the right attitude and behaviors to demonstrate during those challenging times. And that has to be done before, right? It cannot be taught when the employee is in the hot seat. These things need to be discussed prior. There's some employees that need a script, like how I had a script there for Mr. Jordan. Some employees may find it very difficult to come up with their own words. So therefore, scripting becomes important. Things like doing role plays also become important. So you give them the scenario. Mr. Jordan comes in and he's angry and what do you do? What do you say? How do you behave? What about your facial expression? And you go through all those scenarios and you practice using those tools. It also means that you need to look at your hiring practices, right? Because you need employees with the right temperament to deal with your difficult customers. And sometimes we don't think about that during the hiring process. We're looking to see if this person is qualified, if they have the certificate, probably if they're well-spoken, but it's really difficult to get at their temperament. There are some people that fly off the handle very quickly. It doesn't take much. It does not take much to get them angry and upset. And of course, you do not want that at the front line. I always say there should never be a back and forth in the public between an employee and a customer. Employees need to know when, okay, I cannot handle this situation. I need to get someone involved. Or some companies would teach their employees, let's remove the customer from the from the public, from the front line. Let's invite him or her into a manager's office where they could sit, where they could cool down, where we could continue the conversation. So that temperament, companies are doing a lot of work now, I know, on emotional intelligence, so that the employees understand the importance of remaining calm under pressure while taking some heat for a while, right? There is some heat before things can turn around, right? So employees with the right temperament. And I think I had mentioned that active listening before, because there is a process that we teach in terms of how you deal with angry customers. And a critical component, actually one of the very first steps, is the active listening, right? Being able to listen to why this customer is angry, what are they saying, and also being able to read between the lines. Sometimes customers may not always tell you, I am hurt or I'm ashamed, because of whatever scenario, but instead they will call you names and they would begin to bad talk the company. So sometimes you need to be able to listen, to read between the lines, and of course that communication skills become really critical. So I want to give you an example of the kind of training that is sometimes needed. Just a short video I want to show you. And these are some of the 7 steps that, when we have a complete workshop on how you deal with, difficult customers, these are some of the things that we talk about, right? So just giving you a little sample.
No matter how professional and efficient your organization is, you'll have to deal with the occasional unhappy, difficult, or angry customer. In the heat of the moment, it can be a struggle to keep calm and find the right words. But by following these 7 steps, it is possible to restore your client's goodwill and keep his or her custom. Firstly, put yourself in a customer service mindset. Take on board that your client is upset and give him your full attention. Secondly, listen actively to your client's grievance. If necessary, prompt him with a neutral phrase such as, "Let's go over what happened." Don't plan your response or try to resolve issues while he's talking. Simply listening is a powerful way of showing you care. Next, calmly repeat his concerns back to him. This demonstrates you were listening carefully, and it clarifies the problem. Now that you understand why he's unhappy, apologize clearly and empathize with him. By step 5, you may be able to present a solution that you're confident will make your customer happy. If you're not sure how he'll respond, or if he resists your proposal, ask him what would make him happy. Once you've agreed a solution, it's important that you take immediate action and follow up. Explain exactly what you're going to do it, then contact your client again. Finally, use his grievance as a learning opportunity. Minimize the risk of the issue arising again by finding the root cause and fixing it. For more information about dealing with
all right, so as I said, in a workshop where we treat with how do you deal with those angry customers who are not right, these are some of the steps that we go through in detail in terms of training employees, training managers, how to behave and how to act and the tools to use. I want to leave with you one final solution to dealing with that issue of, is the customer right? And I really like this perspective that you're going to hear on this last video. This is from a gentleman called Ron Kaufman. He is an American customer service trainer based in Singapore. And, like us, he would probably come to the conclusion that the customer is not always right. But I like his approach to saying that you can make the customer feel right. Right? So he says, make the customer feel right. So I want you to take a look at this video, and then you will tell me if you agree with that approach and perspective.
One of the questions I'm often asked is the customer always right? Well, sometimes the customer is right. They've done their homework. They know what they're talking about. But sometimes the customer is not right. They're wrong. Customers get confused, they make mistakes, sometimes they exaggerate, and customers have even been known to lie. So what do you do in a case where the customer is wrong? Tell them that they're wrong? No, that's not a win for either party. What you can do is make them feel right. And the way to do that is by agreeing with them on the importance of what it is that they value. But the catch is, they won't always tell you what they value. You have to do the work to listen carefully, figure out what they really value, and then agree with them on the importance of that. Let me give you an example. Let's say a customer complains and says, "Your service is so slow." So you look into it, and it turns out that at every point and promise, you've delivered right on time. In fact, in one case, you were even early. So when the customer says, "Your service is so slow," you could respond like this. You know, you've got a very good point. Speed is important, especially in today's busy world. Let me be the one to help you quickly get this resolved. What if a customer says, "Your product is unreliable"? So you do the research, and it turns out the customer is using the product incorrectly. You can still make them feel right. How do you do that? When they say, "Your product is unreliable," you could reply, "Do you know what? Reliable performance is absolutely important. Let's look into this together." They say, "Your staff is rude." What do they value? Courtesy and respect. They complain that you're rigid and bureaucratic. What do they want? Some flexibility. Your price is too high. They appreciate value for money. They say, "Your website is so hard to use." What is it that they're right about? That they value user-friendly systems. So, is the customer always right? No. But can you always make the customer feel right? Yes, you can. And how do you do that? Agree with them on the importance of what they value. Make them feel right, and you will keep things moving in the right direction for you and your customers.
Okay, so I would like to stop there, Michael. I would stop sharing and I would take questions or comments
All
from
right, ladies.
one in the group.
Yes,
So,
okay,
so,
ladies
so,
and gentlemen.
so sorry, Michael. So just to reiterate what Ron would have said, agreeing on what the customer values, and I think that is really at the foundation of, developing that quality customer service, right? So, we also teach about understanding those five. There are really five main customer expectations. And I think once you understand that, then it puts you in a better place to interact and to engage with your customers, right? So I'll take some questions.
All right, great. So ladies and gentlemen, at this point, we will proceed with the question and answer segment of the webinar. I see that there were no questions in particular placed in the chat, so you all could feel free to unmute your mics and direct any questions to Dr. Jordan Miller at this time.
Chat with me, and it could be a comment, it could be a question.
Okay, well, Dr. Jordan Miller, just to get the ball rolling, I could maybe submit the first question and anyone else could chime in thereafter. But a question that I had was, when do you know exactly when to let a customer go? Like what might be the breaking point in that relationship? And when you've come to that point, how do you go about letting the customer go?
Okay. So when do you know when to let the customer go? When the situation really becomes unbearable, I would say for your employees. Your employees are a sort of good signal. So that if you are attuned to your employees, if you set up your environment where they share information with you, then they would begin to say, Mr. Jordan, this is the third time that he's coming today or this week for a meal, and he is always unhappy. You hear them say things like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what he or she expects. It signals that, okay, we need to do a little investigation. How often is this customer purchasing? and how often do they have complaints. So it means that you must have some kind of data, because of course you do not want the case where you just make a rash decision. Oh my blood, don't take this person, I don't like this person, right? Your decisions are not made on that. It has to be made on some hard facts and figures, right? So if your employees are able to share with you that kind of information, sometimes you can also look at your comments. If you are tracking that, if you are regularly doing customer satisfaction surveys and you see that this person, if they identify that they always have a complaint or a concern, sometimes as well, if you offer like a product or a service guarantee. I was reading one company, it's a motel in the US, that they were able to catch quite a lot of customers who use their service regularly and then complained that they were not happy, and they invoked the warranty to get the free overnight stay or whatever it is. And they were very polite, and I'll tell you how they did it, very diplomat, so that they would have sent the customer an email. And they said, Mr. Jordan, we are so happy that you do business with us. We noticed that you stay with us on a regular basis. However, we've noticed that every time you've stayed, you're not happy, something is wrong, you're not satisfied, and we want to make it right. Could you tell us how we can make it right with you? So they've signaled to the customer, because they said some customers are dishonest, they want to abuse the system. So in that one email that was very polite, very diplomatic, they signaled to the customer, hey, we are on to you, right? We are on to you, right? If you have a legitimate complaint, we want to make it right. If not, we've signaled to you that we recognize what you are doing, right? And many customers, once they are caught, they gently leave or they stop doing that particular action, right? And I think another part is teaching your employees how to recognize these wrong customers, and not in a vengeful way or anything, but just recognizing when a customer consistently has issues or complaints, it's time for some kind of intervention. Because if you don't intervene, then you begin to make the life of the employees very difficult. They don't want to come to work. Oh my gosh, I cannot deal with these customers. I feel as though I'm not equipped to deal with them, and it affects their morale and their motivation, and that's not what you want.
Yeah, especially after you mentioned on the other side them being so important. Okay, well, one other question I had, which we could, I suppose, discuss one time. There's one actually which was posted into the chat, so I'll just go ahead and read it one time. How do you, and this one comes from Hanil Alexander, you could correct me if I'm pronouncing it wrong, but the question is, how do you deal with customers that are wrong and posting dishonesty to social media, making your business look bad or running future customers away? Is it appropriate to post your account as a business?
Yes, I understand what she's asking.
Account is, yes, go ahead.
Yes. So now that, frankly, is very difficult, and that is the age and the era that we live in now. Years ago, customers probably had to sit down and get a pen and a paper and write and post it and so on. Then we got to email now. And I'll give you a funny story. I was doing training for a very popular casual dining restaurant. And one of the employees gave the example that there was a customer in the dining room. He is sitting in the dining room on his phone. He is on Facebook and he's bad talking the company. I've been sitting here for the past hour. Nobody's taking me on. I'm waiting on my meal for so long. So feedback is instantaneous. So it is a challenge to manage some of those negative comments. Is it appropriate to reply? Yes, but it is what you say. I've seen the good and bad, right? As I say, the good, bad, and ugly in terms of how companies reply. You never want to insult the customer. You don't want to say you're lying, you're not telling the truth, and no. Right? You can simply state your case. You, of course, thank them. Always thank customers for their comments. As hard as it is to to digest sometimes. So you want to thank them for their comments or for bringing the issue to their attention. If the customer is being dishonest, you can say, Mr. Jordan, I remember that situation, and I remember that we did move you, or we did offer this alternative or this solution. I am sorry that you still were not happy. Please give us a chance to make it right. As they say, you take the high road. We like that quotation from Michelle Obama: when they go low, you go high, right? And it is difficult as a business place. I remember one restaurant manager saying, he was kind of brought to tears when he read one of the reviews online, and he said he remembered the customer clearly because they had done so much to try and make the customer happy, to try and fix the situation. And when he read the review, all the customer talked about is what had gone wrong. The customer never said, this went wrong, but the company did X, Y, and Z, right? So yes, it is challenging. It is difficult. Yes, you reply, but please, I always say refrain from going back and forth in the public space. So even if the customer, replies, offer, say, Mr. Jordan, I'll be happy to give you a call if you would give me your number, or here is my number, please give me a call. I look forward to making this situation right, because you do not want to go back and forth, tit for tat, out in the public space. But yes, I see, if you look through TripAdvisor, as I said, I'm in the hospitality industry, and you see hotels respond regularly. So I would ask you, if you look, you would see the kind of response. Very short: thank you for bringing this matter to our attention. We are sorry that your stay was not, as you expected. Please give us a chance to make it right. That's it, right? So you don't have to tell us the whole story. And customers are, I think they're more discerning, that sometimes you give them credit for. Yes, there may be a couple customers that would believe the negative review, but I think we are educated enough to know that there are always 2 or 3 sides to this story,
Yes, understandable. Okay, well, I guess one final question just before we wrap up and close off the session. You spoke a lot about customer experience and that being a big factor in maintaining good customer relations. But maybe you could add a little more. What are some tips or advice for fostering good relationships with your customers?
All right, so I'll leave you with one tip, right? And there are kind of 5 strategies that I tend to teach when it comes to building that relationship. And one key one is to establish a human connection with your customers. And it means, therefore, that you go beyond seeing your customer as just a transaction, as just a dollar figure. So when it says build that human connection, as human beings, we crave relationship and connection. Most people, right? Not everyone, but most people. So that if you are very intentional about building a relationship with your customer, you are going to see a shift in how they see you as well. So from the time I walk through the door and you say, hey, Leslie, Ann, so nice to see you, welcome back. You are building that human connection with me, because it signals, 1, you took the time to know my name. 2, you recognize that I'm a repeat customer. And 3, you're happy to see me. You're smiling, you're friendly, you're warm. And then it encourages me to come back. And of course, if your price is right, your quality is right, because of course there are a number of other components to that customer experience. I bring my friends and say, hey, there's this nice little boutique, there's this nice little restaurant. Let's go. I recommend you to others. So I think being able to take the time, now it is going to cost you time. It is sometimes a financial investment, because it could be that you need some kind of database where you start collecting information on your customers, where you begin to keep notes that, hey, when Leslie Ann comes in, she likes to sit in the corner. That note is there. So when the hostess pulls up my reservation, right, they see, okay, she likes to sit in the corner. Let me see if that corner seat is ready. I'm going to put her there. Automatically, I am happy because I'm in my favorite seat, right? Creatures of comfort. So it's those kinds of things that companies need to work on as they develop that customer experience.
Okay, understood. Well, Dr. Jordan Miller, that was a compact session. I could say personally that I have a lot to add to my storage and wealth of information regarding the topic. So I just wanted to thank you for sharing your knowledge with us and of course your experience. And to the participants, on behalf of Nedco, I would like to thank all of you for taking this time to attend this webinar. At Nedco, we endeavor to educate and inform our entrepreneurs and the general public. As we close, for further information on Nedco's services, please like our social media pages. You can also email us at training@nedco.gov.tt or give us a call at 821-5800. That's 821-5800. Do keep in mind also that there is an upcoming training session on customer relationship management carded for the 17th of May from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Thank you for your participation again, and do have a great afternoon. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.